Welcome back from your break. And we're going to pick up right where we left off. Quantum entanglement says anything that has ever interacted are forever connected. They are entangled, and there are no exceptions to this. At first, quantum entanglement was thought to only affect tiny things like quarks and photons. But technology has gotten better at measuring and seeing smaller and larger objects. Entanglement is now being proved true for bigger things, and this is very important. Entanglement is now presumed to be valid for everything, from the smallest particle to the entire universe. Everything is connected. As an example, maybe your best friend is visiting in Moscow and they decide to eat some borscht. That decision can instantaneously have an influence on you in Florida without any kind of physical interaction. Maybe you get a craving for borscht or beets. We see this all the time within close relationships. Joe and I frequently have similar dreams or meditations or crave the same food at the same time. Mothers often know when their child is in danger. This used to be the woo-woo stuff called metaphysics. Stuff that was only believed by delusional people. You know, people who refuse to live in the real world. Like me and Joe. And like you, or else why are you here? Now, quantum mechanics is proving that the quantum world is the real world. And that happens, and what happens to me affects you and vice versa, because we are never not connected. And that brings us to consciousness. Eugene Wigner, holder of the Nobel Prize in Physics, said, "It's not possible to formulate the laws of quantum mechanics in a consistent way without reference to consciousness." Pythagoras and Plato agreed. They both said, all is numbers, all is mind, all is consciousness. So what is consciousness? Consciousness, at its simplest, is awareness of existence. I exist. I am is the same thing. It is self-awareness of being. Out of the Big Bang came the light, and that light is conscious. So here's where we leave our quantum friends behind for a moment, because they are still debating whether light is conscious. My money's on the physicists like Max Planck and Eugene Wigner and John Bell, all of whom think reality is somehow conscious. The ancient texts, which quantum mechanics is little by little proving right, tell us consciousness, the I am, awareness, created everything out of itself, and yet it remains whole. And that's tricky for you and me to get. There's the one, the I am, but there seems to be trillions of separate identities of it. From quantum mechanics, we know that all of creation is connected, is intertwined. The fractals tell us that each of us are exactly like the original. The Emerald Tablet tells us, as above, so below. On some level, we all get this quantum weirdness. What's hard is believing that it applies to me. Look around you. In the retreat, there are many women here together. One consciousness playing many roles, forever connected to each other. The real problem, when stepping into our true power, is believing what the ancient teachings say about who I am, about who you are, and what we are to each other. Everything and everyone is contained inside you. Everything and everyone is contained inside me. Everything and everyone I see outside me comes from inside me. This is big, and this is hard to accept. It's hard to believe. And yet, it is the truth. The Buddha nature and the Christ consciousness are really the same thing. It is being awake to the fact that all is consciousness. What we are striving for is knowing who we are. It's so hard to get this concept. If you could raise your arm up above your head in a V. Now, if you're in a room with other people, you will see this clearly. Consciousness, which is all around you, has funneled itself into a perspective. You. The vastness of consciousness is holding a particular perspective through you. But when you look around you with your arms intersected, and if you're home with no one else around, you can still imagine it. You can imagine that just beyond your fingertips, everything flows together. That seeming individuality, that seeming separateness ends just beyond your fingertips. There's not many consciousnesses. There is one, and we all share in it. But all of it empowers each one of us. We have access to the whole of it, to the power of it. When you send healing thoughts to someone, you are sending them to yourself, because everything is contained within you. When you send angry, hateful thoughts to someone, you are sending them to yourself, because all is contained within you. And this is the basis of the forgiveness work. It is understanding that there are not many, there is one. When Dr. Hugh Lin healed all the inmates in the Hawaiian State Hospital for the criminally insane, he understood this. He got it, this oneness. When he said this prayer, this is what he was saying. I'm sorry for my misinterpretation and my misperception of you. Please forgive me for my flawed beliefs that have held you trapped. Thank you for being a part of this incredible tapestry of life. I love you. You are me. We are one. There is no other. You can say this prayer for anyone at any time, and it will help them, and it will help you. Dr. Lynn never saw a patient at the hospital for the criminally insane. He sat with their file folder and he prayed this prayer with the meanings that I just said. I'm sorry for my misinterpretation, my misperception of you. Please forgive me for my flawed beliefs that have held you trapped. Thank you for being a part of the tapestry of life. I love you. You are me. I am you. We are one. And he healed every single violent patient in that hospital over a little over 18 months. And it was eventually closed on his watch as it was no longer needed. Why does this stuff work, these techniques? Why do they work? They work because they can't not work. These are laws. They are based on universal laws. This is how the universe works. This is what science is looking for, the unified field theory. But until science allows consciousness into the equation, they will hunt and hunt and hunt and not find. These laws are different than rules. Let me say that. Rules can be broken. Laws are the fundamental principle on which reality is based. The three laws I'm talking about here, why this stuff works. Number one, everything is conscious. Everything is consciousness. Law 2, consciousness creates everything out of itself by imagining it into being. And 3, what we put out there comes back to us magnified. When we practice these principles, and it does work, let's stop saying, oh my God, you're not going to believe what just happened. It worked. Of course it worked. Start believing and expecting things to happen. Science is catching up. Now we need to catch up. So, I'm going to present another technique that works. This one is called the laser beam technique. And it's adapted from one of Neville Goddard's 1951 radio talks. He had a show that year on the radio, and this is a modification of one of his. It's a very simple and effective way to use your imagination to bring around cooperation between you and another person. Neville has said that any method that convinces your unconscious mind of the reality of something works. It's that simple. This one works magnificently. When you want something wonderful for a loved one, like getting a great job or a healing, you can use this technique. This technique can heal a rift between you and another person. It can smooth an uncomfortable communication with a person, like asking a boss for a raise. Anything that concerns you and another person, this technique is powerful. Briefly, the way it works, and the instructions are in the book, both books as a matter of fact. Here's a quick overview. You will be sending out a magnetic beam, an imaginary beam, to contact someone in the field. And remember, everyone is within you, so that beam will find them and will bring them to you. No matter what your current situation is with them, if you're not speaking because of an argument, something going on, or they're, honestly, even if they're on the other side, they will come willingly, filled with love and understanding. And the reason that happens is because this technique works on a level where nothing blocks love from expressing. So they will be drawn to you, and soon you will find that they are facing you no more than a couple of feet away, and you will hear the person say to you exactly what you want to hear from them. So you imagine that be something simple. It could be something like, "I love you," or "I got the job," or "The doctor said I'm completely healed," or your boss saying, "Your work has been exemplary and I'm giving you a raise." And you will then lovingly reply in an appropriate way. "I love you too," or "I'm so happy for you," or "Thank you." So now I want you to take a moment and choose a person to work with. A family or a family member or a friend, anyone in your life that is needing some help right now, and I'm sure all of us know someone. Or it may be that you want to repair a relationship with someone. I'm going to give you a moment to bring that person to mind. All right, everyone have somebody in mind? You know what the issue is? And now just imagine what it is. What would you like to hear them be saying to you? Just like the examples I gave you before. All right? And now we're going to go into a very brief meditation to bring that about. So just get quiet and relaxed. And close your eyes and just breathe. And be comfortable. And just follow your breath and allow yourself to be very, very relaxed. Let every breath bring you deeper into that place of peace, relaxation, and harmony. And Now put your attention in the space between your eyebrows. And just breathe into this spot right between your eyebrows. And now imagine a laser beam of intense light going out from your forehead. Imagine it scanning the horizon. The person you are trying to contact is out there, and no matter where they are, they will see and feel the pull of this light. Now you have them in your beam. Imagine them seeing the light and turning toward you. And imagine them smiling at you. Now imagine them following the beam of light back to you until they are standing directly in front of you, no more than a couple of feet away. Imagine that they are so close you can look directly into their eyes. And now imagine them saying the words you want to hear from them. Keep it simple. Simple words are best. And now let the feelings well up from inside you, from hearing these words. Let those feelings roll through you. Feel the relief, the happiness, the joy, whatever their words, whatever that evokes, let it come. And now imagine responding to them. Use a phrase that fits the situation. It could be, I love you too. That's wonderful news. Thank you so much. And now imagine a physical action that feels appropriate for the situation and the person. Shake their hand, or embrace them, or touch their shoulder, or just smile. Imagine it and feel it. And that's it. Now come back in. It's a very short meditation, no longer than 5 minutes, if that. Try this. This is a very effective technique. We have used it. We know people in the group that we have given it to, and they have used it successfully. In fact, nearly instantaneously, we have a person who, I'm not going to use her name, she had a son who was in an auto accident, and he was very resistant to any kind of medical attention, and she wanted him to at least see a chiropractor. And he would not listen to her. He would not hear a word she was saying. She did this technique in the evening. The very next day, she had to return his dog to him. She was dog sitting since the accident. And when she walked in, he said, "Hi, Mom." and showed her a brochure to a chiropractor he was going to go see, because you can't make this stuff up.
This is a photo of a network. Within the network of connections is an intelligence that's resident in the field. This intelligence is not isolated. It's a creative current that's always on. It pervades all universes, and it's inherent in each one of us. We can't see the field, much less the intelligence in it. At least, we can't see it at today's stage of human development. This intelligence, this creative thing, has always existed. There was no nothing before it. It exists as isness. It is. The tiniest measurable unit we know today is a quark. It contains this current, and everything is in this network. What happens at point A in this field of consciousness moves at great speed and instantly affects everything across points B to Z. At this elevated network view of consciousness, there is no emotional charge around an event or a thought or an action. It's benign and neutral. Let me repeat that. At this elevated network view of consciousness, there is no emotional charge around an event, a thought, or an action. It's benign and neutral. Everything is batting around, waiting to be manifested in this creative field of consciousness. But of course, we can't let that sit undisturbed, can we? So let's complicate it. Consciousness and thought forms. Thoughts are vibrating energy units of creative consciousness. Each thought has a birth. It lives for a moment or an eon, then it dies. These thought forms continually flood the collective consciousness of humanity, and every one of us is affected to a greater or lesser degree by the thought forms we create and those created by others. You're not isolated from them, but your reaction to them determines how severe or passing the effect is. These thought forms are alive as entities, and they're mostly visible on the astral level. They can be hideous formations that cause psychic attacks, or they're sweet, lulling you with their loveliness. Your astral energy form wavers constantly in response to the thought form experiences, even though you may never be aware of how you're being bombarded. It's still happening. So let's look at how it occurs. This slide is the catalyst reaction and energy signatures. So enter the catalyst who stirs things up. You create an emotional imprint when you react to your own or the thought forms of others. Your emotional reactions pour gasoline on the benign neutral thought forms in the field and activate them into the collective consciousness of all of us. Depending on how powerful your emotional reaction is, you will influence the consciousness of someone nearby or far away. You're a resident in the network of the field. You're not separate from it. We can't say this enough times. And know this, there are even more powerful forces at work in the field. Those forces, activated by like thoughts and emotions, can drive mass thinking or mass consciousness. And they do this by using dominant and highly charged, compelling feelings like fear or compassion to influence others. For eons, religions have used massive thought forms to create gods, goddesses, and devils that control the behaviors of their followers. For an example, the Catholic Church decree about not eating meat on Friday was an economic directive to support the Italian fishing industry. It had nothing to do with anybody being holy. What happens when all these emotions and thoughts are unleashed? Well, you get an energy signature that gets imprinted in the field, which permeate and fixes themselves into the collective consciousness. Becoming the catalyst asks you to be aware of these forces, to look past the obvious expression and see what the motivation is behind the force that compels you to action. In becoming aware, you're accessing what the general population views as extraordinary states of consciousness, and you're making it normal. That's the meaning of becoming a catalyst. Now, there are human energy signatures. This is you. Yeah, you're muscle and bone and tissue. That's the visible part. But you're also the sum of the beliefs, opinions, values, ideas, ideals, and thoughts you hold. You can't see those qualities with physical eyes, but they're more real than the muscle, bone, and tissue you can see and touch. This is how you might look to one who can see alternative realities, because your form is made up of all the energy signatures that you hold on to and that you project out to the world. The colors and the formations are who you are. They can be dark or light, cool or hot, sharp or smooth. It's who you are. This next slide shows the geometry of energy signatures. Every emotion has a positive or a negative charge. Example, love and hate, trust and betrayal. Some emotions, like anger and fear, are already presenting in the field as angular or jagged energy. Those emotions are very sharp and very active. Emotions like compassion and love present as undulating waves of energy. They're more passive, and maybe the better word is less resistant. Look at these illustrations of emotions. You may be wondering why we're focusing on this so much. Here's why. Every emotional reaction you emit causes a scientifically proven chain reaction that affects not just you, but everyone else, whether they're close or far away. And here's something you may not know. Your emotional reactions affect your human DNA. In 2 scientifically controlled experiments, human emotions changed the shape of DNA, and human DNA changed photons. Photons are the stuff that creates matter. Now, in this slide, Patricia, go back. Go back. In this slide, you see anger as jagged. You see happiness as an undulating energy signature, the same as love. Sadness, fear are jagged energy signatures. So let's look at normal DNA. This is a normal view of DNA. It's a map of your genetics, how you look, your parents, your sex, your risk of disease, and DNA is how you make proteins. 98% of DNA used to be called junk DNA, but that changed about 7 years ago when scientists began to refer to it as uncoded. They realized something was going on. Now think about this for a minute. Look at DNA as a 100-page physical book. How would you know the story written in the book if only 2 pages had printed information and the other 98 pages were gibberish? Scientists have gone back and said, maybe it's not junk after all. Junk DNA, they have learned, accounts for opposing thumbs and how the uterus is structured. In February, a 32-country cancer study found links in types of cancers and began to map them. Where do you think they found the maps? In the 98% that's uncoded DNA. Here's another idea on this uncoded DNA. Some scientists, to the ridicule of the traditionalists, think activities like ESP, third sight, emotions, or horror of horrors, even consciousness, may be found in the 98% that's uncoded. One of the experiments I mentioned earlier is that human emotions can change DNA in controlled laboratory conditions. Well, here's how. Doctors Glenn Reen and Roland McCready found that the human heart has an electromagnetic current that extends 5 to 8 feet. So they took pristine umbilical cord DNA and had test subjects bombard the DNA with negative emotions of hate and anger and rage and frustration. Then they examined the DNA. This is the DNA. It had withdrawn from its elongated state. It became coiled and tightened into a knot, and it was seen to withdraw from its normal state. When the same DNA was exposed to positive emotions like gratitude, like compassion, like empathy, the DNA uncoiled and became long, wavy, and undulating. When you witness or emotionally engage with events occurring on the news or around the world, your state of being is not only changing your DNA, but it's affecting the protons that are the building blocks of matter. Patricia mentioned climate change earlier, and that human temperatures are getting cooler as a result of the heating up of the planet. In another experiment, scientists took a test tube that was filled with protons. These subatomic particles that randomly float around in space, they inserted human DNA into a test tube. What they found was the photons went from random or scattered floaters, and over time they lined up in the ordered spiral form of the DNA. The conclusion of that experiment was that DNA affects matter. I submit to you that emotions affect DNA and DNA changes matter. Let's look at it another way. Remember the quantum physics photo I showed you earlier of one molecule occupying two places at the same time? How they do that is through entanglement. This means that particles, even when separated by great distance, will interact the same way with each other. We are fractals of the whole existing in the field and interacting with it all the time. So, how do like emotions get entangled? Remember, nothing exists to us unless it's observed. Our beliefs and thoughts align with similar beliefs and thoughts in the field. We then participate in the creation of reality by our shared observations. This is the essence of the double-slit experiment. The greater the amount of watching by the observer, the greater the observer's influence on what takes place. The photons line up, they follow the patterns of the beliefs, and arrange themselves to mirror back the reality you're watching and believing to be true. The act of looking, the act of seeking, are acts of creation, and that's how emotional entanglement influences matter and reality. So now we come to mass events and consciousness. Events always play out on a world stage, and we are not isolated from what's happening in a foreign country or in our backyard. It can be a happy event like the Super Bowl halftime show, a school shooting, or the devastating fires in Australia. We have an emotional reaction to every one of these global events. Some of them are positive, some are not. All of them are highly charged. Shakira and Jennifer Lopez's halftime show was called one of the greatest ever. About 20 minutes after it ended, the voices of viewers were heard on social media. A chorus of them said, "Oh no, it demeaned women." Another group said it bordered on S&M pornography because of the whips, chains, and cages. Several called out Shakira for wagging her tongue suggestively at the audience. One man decided to sue the NFL for subjecting him to watch the images. I guess the smart TV did not come with an on and off switch. 24 hours later, it emerged from the Latina and Black communities that this show was thoroughly researched and choreographed to make a statement. The whips and the chains were symbolic of slavery. The cages represented the immigrant children living in cages at the border. The pole dancing that Jennifer Lopez did called out the black women who have no other jobs than the oldest profession. And about Shakira's tongue wagging, well, Shakira's half Arabic, and her tongue wagging was a nod to her Lebanese culture, because tongue wagging is a recognized symbol for Middle Eastern women. It's called sagruta, or in English, ululation, and it's the sound of a high-pitched wailing or grief. Shakira wanted to call attention to the plight and suffering of Middle Eastern women. Everyone who saw the Super Bowl had a different reaction. What we must keep in mind is this: whatever your reaction is, you're not isolated from others that hold the same reaction. When you say something often enough to vulnerable ears, incredulity turns to belief. Our favorite Puerto Rican cashier at Detweiler's is named Tanya. A week after the Super Bowl, we were talking to her about the women's performance. Tanya said, white people put their hands over their eyes and go, no, no, no. Latinas all over the world put their hands up in the air and cheer for Puerto Rican women. Your responsibility is what you do with the reaction you have to the offense. Did you form an opinion about the performance? Was it a knee-jerk reaction based on surface viewing? Did you pause and really find out what was it all about? Digging under the obvious is how you become a catalyst so you can look and change things. In your book on page 17, Princeton University studies reveal that when millions of hearts and minds are engaged at once, structure will emerge out of the randomness. Long before quantum physics became dinner conversation, not in your home like it is in ours. Anyway, it was mentioned by Seth in the Jane Roberts books that the physical world is made up of invisible patterns, and your observations determine what form those patterns take. Your feelings and thoughts rise up like flames in a fire or steam from water. Your interior feelings work together to form external weather patterns. Weather is a physical version of man's emotional state, and humans have a direct role in forming natural disasters. I know this may be hard for some to wrap their heads around it, but if you're going to be a catalyst, you have to understand the what's and why's happening behind what you're seeing externally. This is the next disaster. It's happening right now. It has just been called a global pandemic. Borders are being closed. Planes are no longer flying to and from China, South Korea, Iran, and Italy. Cruise ships are quarantined. This is a virus that's killed, at the time of this video, 115,000 have been affected, and we're closing in on 5,000 deaths. I just offer for you not to minimize what we're being advised to do by the CDC and the World Health Organization to control the virus. We're not minimizing what they're saying to do. But in contrast, the 2019 influenza sickened 41 million people and resulted in 57,000 deaths. And it got barely a ripple of coverage in comparison to the coronavirus. We talked earlier about energy signatures, thought forms, and feelings, and how they have positive and negative impacts on us. We've worked with ways in the last 9 months on how to transmute that energy and turn it into a creative force for you to deliver those things that you wish to have happen. Patricia developed this next meditation, which is called the transmutation of mind energy into consciousness. Patricia, would you like to take it from here?
Thank you. All right. So we've already established that everything is made of energy. Whether in form or not in form, everything is a dynamic field of energy. And all energy is constantly in flux. Energy is always rising and falling. It's becoming and expressing and then ending. And that is the cycle in the 3D plane of existence that we live in. Our thoughts and feelings shape energy. Energy itself is neutral. Our thoughts are the pattern, and our feelings are the fuel of creation. Thoughts open avenues for expression, and that attracts similar thoughts. Similar thoughts gathered together begin to create stories. And those stories elicit an emotional response within us. And that emotional response attracts more energy. And that energy rewards the original thoughts. And the cycle repeats because now more similar thoughts are gathered and more response and reward are reaped. And it's an endless cycle that goes on until we understand what is happening and get control of it. Mostly we don't get control of it because we don't notice our daily thoughts. We don't notice them until we end up having such a bad feeling inside. Depression, sadness, anger, fear, that seemingly came out of nowhere. These are feelings that responded to the thoughts that we were entertaining without our knowledge. And have you ever noticed when you do try to control your thoughts that they feel totally out of control? It's as if our mind has a mind of its own. But here's the thing. We mostly replay the same theme with different characters. So what's a girl to do? Turns out, the tantric sages of Tibet taught that if you can recognize your thoughts for what they are, nothing but mind energy, then they will stop troubling you. And then they can be harnessed. They can be harnessed to rewrite and recreate the reality you experience. They can be harnessed to create portals to take you into other greater depths of reality. Most of us never pay any attention to the energetic aspect of our thoughts. We're just too busy getting caught up in the story, as if the drama is real and important. Do you have any idea how often we get caught up in epic fiction that we've created? Have you ever followed a thought, a negative thought? Perhaps something the talking heads on TV planted? Like a plague, or like financial ruin, or some other imminent disaster. And you followed your thoughts and followed them until you found yourself filled with rage or filled with fear. And nothing was even happening. And yet, there you are, shaking with anger, trembling with fear. It's no mystery what's going on. An initial thought gets our attention. We have that emotional reaction. We're bound to have it. So more thoughts pile on, and they get more response, and before we know it, we have some pretty powerfully charged energy. And unless we do something constructive with it, it can be very detrimental to us. Because powerfully charged negative energy pulls us right out of our equanimity. Goodbye, middle way. Hello, extreme reaction. And those extreme reactions causes our body to release the stress hormone cortisol, which is well known to lead to anxiety, depression, headache, and heart disease. And remember, nothing is really happening. Because powerful emotion plus our thoughts create our reality, we are also unconsciously contributing to creating a world that we really don't wish to live in. Think about that. And we do it all the time. We listen to the news, we read an article on the internet, we join in the bad-mouthing of the tyrant of the day, and we lament the sorry state of the world. All we're doing is contributing to building up more negative thoughts and more negative energy that we aren't going to use in any constructive way. The good news is we're going to learn how to use highly charged energy in the creative process. If we can just release the story that so upsets us, then we can use the energy behind it to create other outcomes. Charged thoughts like joy or anger, relief and depression carry strong energy signatures, and strong signatures can be useful. Obviously, joy and relief, those are feelings you want to entertain. They don't have a downside. The others, anger and fear, depression, those need to be transmuted. And the meditation we're about to do is designed to do just that. It will allow us to identify energy signatures and then claim their power for our own use. So what we're going to do is first we'll use a pleasant series of thoughts in the meditation in order just to get acquainted with what those signatures look like and feel like. And then we'll find an unpleasant thought to work with, and we'll experience the power of that energy imprint. And finally, we'll use the powerful energy patterns, make them manageable, and then we'll use them constructively. And so let's get ready for the meditation. You'll want to be sitting upright with your back straight and close your eyes and just center in your belly and breathe. Just breathe, I am. Breathe I in and am out. This is a very powerful mantra. It centers you and it calms you. And now bring your attention and just put your attention between the eyebrows. Again, breathing I in and am out. And finally, center your thoughts and your attention in the center of your chest. right at heart level. And breathe I in and am out. And now just breathe. Let your mantra go. And thoughts will come and thoughts will go. And when you try to observe them, they will shy away. But not for long, they'll return. Just breathe. And now let's find a sweet thought to work with. It could be your favorite place on earth, maybe someone special in your life, or something you love to do. Whatever that is, just bring it to mind now. And imagine all the good things around this. Just let go the feelings and the emotion and just follow it. Just enjoy being there in your mind with that person or with that thing. Just follow your thoughts. And now let go of the story around these thoughts. Just let the story go and let's focus on the energy. And notice how you feel and where you feel it. Where in your body do you feel it? And once you've found it, notice the texture and the temperature. Warm, soft, smooth. And can you imagine touching those feelings? And how would that feel? And how does this energy move, this emotion that came up? So these are all the identifying features of an energetic signature of a pleasant thought. And we don't mind pleasant thoughts. They can be like a mini vacation. Many of us daydream into a happy place. So now release this little energy signature. Let it float away. You're not going to need it anymore. It was just for comparison to get an idea. And now we're going to work with the energy of a highly charged thought. So just breathe a moment and get centered. And now think about something that creates anger or fear in you. It could be a current event. It could be a disagreement with a person, a fear you have. Just pick one thing and pick it now. And now let your thoughts run wild on this topic. And I mean, let yourself go to the dark side. and just follow the worst case scenario until you feel a reaction inside. And now stop and let go of that story. Let go of the story that's causing the disturbance and tune into just the feelings that are inside you. And find it inside your body. Where is it? And when you find it, how does it feel? Is it hard, like a knot, or big? Is it hot? Is it sharp? If you could touch it, how would it feel? And identify its shape also. It could be jagged, it could be twisty, it could be big, black, blob. And if it's moving, what speed is it moving? What direction is it going? And is there a pattern? Notice how intense, and that intensity is what's fueling your reaction. But without the story around it, it's just very intense energy. So for the moment, leave that energy where it is. And breathe. And imagine you have no physical boundaries. Your body is permeable, not solid at all. Air and light passes right through. And become conscious of the vast space of your inner awareness. And let that awareness expand. You are ethereal. You are limitless. And absolutely everything is encompassed by your awareness. Even the earth and the sky, the solar system and the galaxy, all of reality and beyond is actually within your awareness. And within this enormous spaciousness, all energy exists. So now from your wider awareness, find the intense, uncomfortable energy signature that you were just working with. Before it was an energetic storm, maybe with the power of a hurricane. See if you can see or sense it now. From your larger perspective, you can recognize the inner storm, and it is still powerful, and yet it doesn't seem as huge. against the backdrop of endless space. Your dynamic energy is pure and powerful, but manageable. And this is the energy of mind that creates reality. And now that you have recognized it and named it, you can use it, for it is yours to command, and always has been. So breathe in and claim it. You have the fuel to bring into reality anything you can conceive of. So why not imagine now what you would want instead of that which so disturbed you? Bring to mind a happier scenario. With that scenario in mind, breathe in the energy from before and breathe out, knowing what you desire is yours now. Do that. Breathe. And so now it is done. Be grateful and smile. And bring your attention fully into your body. And notice the surface underneath you. Feel your feet on the ground, your hands in your lap, and come fully and completely into your body now. And when you are ready, open your eyes.
This meditation that you've just experienced is truly a dynamic self-healing meditation, and also one that allows you to take the raw creative power of emotion and implement it into what you desire. Last summer, when Patricia first developed it, I had the occasion to use it with an individual, and in the process of examining what happened and why I had such a visceral, raging emotional response, I saw the power of those emotions. But at the time, when you go out into space and you look back, I could barely find it in the vastness. And it wasn't until I was able to come back from that vastness and see it, not with a personal lens, but more of an energetic lens, that I was able to collapse it into what it really is and transmute that energy and later be able to use it in a magnificent way in a meditation that's really the crux of this retreat that Patricia will take you through this afternoon, called the Garden of Eden. If you have had an experience with this, journal it, write it down, whatever. And those of you listening to the video, maybe share it with us if you feel compelled to do so. If you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to send us an email. We'll be able to collapse the experiences and see what emotions we collectively have been working with and how we transmuted them. Okay?
So we're at the end of segment 2 of the 3 segments of this video retreat. And when you're ready, you can go on to the last segment.